Alright, the second layer that's going to go in our shepherd's pie is the gravy. I had a mushroom and onion gravy, but my husband threw it out. I don't know why. I just made it a couple days ago just for this recipe. But in this pot, which is the same pot that we browned up the Italian sausage, I just dumped out the sausage and put it into the baking dish that's going to go in. And I've taken the same pot so I get the nice same flavors that are in there. Browned up the bacon that I put inside of the mashed potatoes. And now to this, I'm going to add about a half a cup of chopped onion. You can chop it as fine or as big as you like it. Add that right in, and the heat is on about low. You don't want it too high because you don't want anything to burn. Also, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of butter just to give it a little bit more richness and a little bit more flavor. And you can completely leave that out if you don't want it in there. And to this, I'm going to add a little bit more kosher salt. Just a little bit, about a half a teaspoon, and about a 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper, ground black pepper. Okay, and you're going to stir this around until the butter melts, until the onion becomes a little bit soft and translucent. You do not want it to brown. And you're picking up all those flavors from the ground meat that you use and the bacon that I used to go inside of my mashed potatoes. And it's going to have flavor from the onion as well as from my butter. It's almost completely melted. And I'm going to add about 1½ tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Just sprinkle that over the mixture. And you're going to cook this flour in this mixture for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. You just kind of want to cook off that doughy, floury taste. And it's going to start to get tight on you. It's going to start to thicken up. And you want to constantly be moving it around with your wooden spoon or a wire whisk if you have that as well, which I'm going to use that in a minute when I add the liquid to this. So just keep stirring it to incorporate all of those flavors together. And also, if you want to make it spicy, now is the point that you can go ahead and add some kind of spice like cayenne pepper. Okay. Let that go. Now the liquids that I'm going to be using is about a cup of chicken stock, and you can use the low sodium, whichever one you have in your pantry or in your refrigerator is fine. I happen to have the full fat pack that I got from Sam's Club. Or you can use water, but chicken stock has a lot more flavor if you have chicken stock, beef stock, vegetable stock, or whatever. And I have a little bit of heavy cream left over from the other day, and it's only about maybe a 1/4 of a cup, maybe a little bit less than that. That's going to give it some richness and creaminess to this gravy that we're making. And this is just another layer of flavor that's going to be added to the shepherd's pie. And by all means, you can leave out this gravy layer and just skip straight to the mashed potatoes. Okay, so the flour has been cooking in there for about 2 minutes. So I'm going to add in the chicken stock slowly. And at this point, you can turn up the heat a little bit to about medium to medium-high heat. And I'm going to take a wire whisk and whisk it because I don't want any lumps to be in this gravy. So you whisk it until it starts to thicken. And another thing is, the longer you let the flour cook, the darker it will become. And that's cool if you want to have a dark brown colored gravy. This is going to be a lighter colored gravy. It just depends on your preference. And now my gravy is starting to thicken. I'm going to keep whisking it, like I said, because I don't want any lumps. So just whisk away. Making sure to get the sides, to get all those flavors and bits of bacon and from the ground meat that you cooked in here earlier. Don't want to waste any flavor. Alright, and once it's got to the thickness that you want it to be, turn off the heat. And now I'm going to add in the heavy cream. And preferably you want the chicken stock and the heavy cream to be at room temperature. That way it won't cool down the liquid. It'll kind of incorporate a lot better. And this is only going to take maybe 30 seconds to kind of incorporate it and let it thicken up again. Gonna mix that all in. Alright, and that is what the gravy looks like. And as it sits, it's going to thicken up even more. The next step, I'm going to show you guys how to assemble and bake the shepherd's pie. Stay tuned. Okay guys, now we're at the final step, which is assembling and baking the shepherd's pie. Here I have a glass 13 by 9 inch baking dish, and I've added the already cooked and seasoned ground Italian sausage, and you can add whatever ground meat you like I said before. And now we're going to add the second layer, which is the gravy. And I'm just going to pour it right over the meat. Make sure you get all of that gravy out. I'm just going to add so much flavor to this dish if you decide to use it. Okay. Just kind of spread it out a little bit. The next step is I'm going to add cheese. And not everybody adds cheese. Some people like to add vegetables at this step. My family doesn't really like the peas and carrots. That's traditional for the shepherd's pie. And the cheeses that I have is shredded mozzarella, shredded cheddar, and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And you're just going to add enough to cover the meat and gravy. And I mean, you could add one cheese, all of these cheeses, or a different cheese. Monterey Jack, any kind that you have, Colby Jack or something like that. So I'm going to sprinkle this right on top. Now I'm going to add some mozzarella. And lastly, I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese. If I can get it open, my hands are slippery. There we go. I'm just going to sprinkle that right across the top. And Parmesan cheese is very sharp, so you don't want to add too much of that. So once you've added all your cheeses, the last and final step is to add those mashed potatoes with the bacon. And you kind of want to spread it as evenly as possible over the rest of the ingredients. So just scoop and plop it right on top. And while you're doing this, you can preheat your oven to about 375 degrees Fahrenheit. And make sure that your rack is in the center of the oven because you don't want to burn the bottom of your shepherd's pie. I'm just making sure I'm getting all the mashed potatoes out of this pot. Okay. And then you're going to take your smaller spoon and just kind of spread it to the edge. Just like that. And what I like to do is leave some peaks because those peaks are going to get nice and crispy brown. It adds a little bit more crunch and texture to the dish. So once it's completely covered, I'm going to add a little bit of paprika. And it just gives it a little bit of color. Okay, here we go. Just sprinkle a little bit of that across the top. And if you don't have paprika, that's fine. So you're going to bake it at 375 degrees for about 35 to 40 minutes or until the top is nice and golden brown, because everything in here is cooked. You just kind of brown the top of the mashed potatoes. And I'll be back to show you guys the final look. Okay guys, this is the finished product of the homemade shepherd's pie. This is it just out of the oven. It cooked for about 30 minutes. And the color that you see there is the paprika on top. And as you can see, those peaks of the mashed potatoes have browned very nicely. So you want to make sure that you let this cool. Once you take it out of the oven, put it on a cooling rack and let it cool for about 20 to 30 minutes before you cut into it. And the next day leftovers taste so good of this shepherd's pie. It's easier to cut the next day. But that's it guys. I hope you guys give this recipe a try, and if you do, let me know what you think of it, and I hope you all enjoy. Take care and God bless. Bye.